Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Excel Sessions, and today we will learn how to create pivot table in Excel. Pivot table is one of the powerful and useful feature in Excel. It helps you to quickly arrange and summarize the complex Excel data, and then you can view the data from many different perspectives to get the required information. Watch the video till end as complete understanding of pivot tables will drastically increase your efficiency in Excel. The first step is to create the data in Excel. We have created employee data having 265 rows and 8 columns. It contains employee specific information like ID, employee name, department, joining date, grade, location, salary, phone number in tabular form. Now the next step is to insert the pivot table. Select any cell in the data and go to Insert tab, and under Tables group, click on Pivot Table option. The data in sheet is automatically selected, and in Create Pivot Table box, the selected range is available in Table or Range field. The default location of pivot table is New Worksheet. If you want to place pivot table in the same sheet, select Existing Worksheet option and select a cell in the sheet. So I have selected K5, which is now visible in Location field. Click OK. Excel created a blank pivot table starting from selected cell K5. Excel is also showing the pivot table fields where all the 8 columns are visible, but none of the field is selected. The next step is to drag the fields into columns, rows, or values area. This step will create the required pivot table. Filters area is used to apply global filters to the pivot table. Now for an example, if we want to show count of total resources, drag employee name field or ID field into values area. For text type field, by default Excel show count of the cells. Now the count shows that we have 264 total employees. For number type fields, by default Excel will show sum of the values. So if I drag salary field in the values area, Excel will show sum of salaries given to 264 employees. Currently, I am removing sum of salary field. To remove any field, uncheck the field or drag back the field from the values area. Now pivot table is showing only the count of employee. Now to break the employee count by location or by grade or by department, drag the required field into the rows area. So drag the location field in the rows area. Now you can clearly see the resource count at location level. Now from the pivot table, we can conclude lots of information like resources in Jaipur are maximum and minimum resources are at Mumbai. By default, the data is sorted according to the location. To sort the data according to the employee count, click on the cell in the count column, go to data tab, click sort button. If you make any change in the data, the pivot table does not change automatically. So you need to refresh the pivot table. For example, if I change the location from Mumbai to Pune, there is no change in the pivot table. Now to update the pivot table, click on any cell, right click and press refresh button. Now Mumbai location is removed and Pune count is increased by 1. You can add more than one field in values. So I'm adding the salary field in values area again. Pivot table is now showing both employee count and salary at location level. You can change the number format of the values. Click on any salary value, right click and select number format option. In Format Cells window, select currency category, change the decimal places to 0, click OK. Now salary is in dollar format. When pivot table is selected, pivot table fields are visible. If you select any other cell outside pivot table, the pivot table fields are not visible. If you accidentally close the pivot table fields window, then To show the fields again, select any cell in the pivot table, go to Analyze menu option, and under Show Group, click on Field List. The pivot table fields are visible again. The pivot tables can show the data in two dimensions also. So I am removing salary field again. Now the next step is to create the two dimension pivot. Drag the department field in columns area. Now the resource count of each location is divided according to the department. From the pivot table, you can conclude lots of information. We have 9 employees of accounts department in Jaipur location. There is no finance resource in Pune. Maximum resources are in finance department and minimum resources are in HR department. Pivot table also show the total resources at both rows and columns level. So we have total 37 sales resources or total 24 resources at Lucknow. You can change the position of any row or column in the pivot table. So there are two ways to change the order of any field in the rows or columns. For example, to show the Hyderabad on any other location, select the Hyderabad and drag the field to the required position. So I'm placing it in between Lucknow and Noida. The corresponding data will automatically change. Similarly, to show the finance in the beginning, select the finance field, right click, go to move option and select the required position. So if I select move finance to beginning, the finance field will move to the beginning. Again, the corresponding data will automatically change. Now in our data, we have a field joining date and pivot table have a functionality in which can group the dates into year, month or at quarter level. So select the pivot table. I am removing the department area from columns and add joining date into the column area. Now in the pivot table, the dates are at the column level and you can see years, quarters and joining date in the columns area. Now to show the data at joining year level only, select any year in the pivot table, right click and select group option. Now in grouping box, unselect months and quarters. It means now years is only selected. Click OK. Now the pivot table is showing employee count by location and year of joining. Now the filters area is used to apply global filter on the pivot table. Now in our data, to apply the filter at grade level, drag the grade field into the filters area. By default, all values are selected. Click on the drop down option. Now to show the data only for R6 grade, select multiple items box. Click on all option to uncheck and then select R6 only. Click OK. Now pivot table is showing that there is only one resource of R6 grade at Jaipur location only, which is joined in 2018. Similarly, to see the data for both R5 and R6 grade, click on drop down and select R5 also. Click OK. Now it's showing that both R5 and R6 grade resources joined in Jaipur in 2018. Now to show data for all the grades again, select all option and click OK. You can create more than one pivot table in a single sheet. Click on the pivot table, copy the pivot table using Ctrl C and paste using Ctrl V at other location. Now in the second pivot table, you can make the required changes. So I'm removing the grade, the count of employees. I am adding salary field in the values. I am removing the joining date also. Now the first pivot table is the two-dimensional pivot where employee count is displayed at location level and date of joining level. Second pivot table is a single dimension where total salary of employees at location level is visible. Now in case of the number type like salary, there are different options in pivot table because salary is a number type, so it's showing by default sum of the salaries. Now add one more instance of the salaries into values area. Select any cell into the second instance of the salary. Right click, go to the summarize values by. By default, sum option is already checked. Now click on average option. Now the second instance of salary is showing average salary at each location. Select all values in the second instance of the salary and in Home tab, press decrease decimal option, so it will decrease the decimal points. Similarly, you can show the maximum or the minimum values at each location. So currently it is showing the minimum of the salary, and if you select max, it will show the maximum of the salary or at each location. Now I am showing the sum of the salaries again. Now select any cell in the second instance of the salary. Right click. Now go to the show values as and select percentage of grand total option. Now the second instance of salary is displayed at location level along with percentage of the total salaries. So salary given at Jaipur location is around 30% of the total salary. You can display the same data according to the grade or location department. Drag the grade field from filters to the rows area and locations to the filters option. Now the pivot table is showing the salaries at grade level. You can add the employee name field in values again. Now the pivot table is showing the employee count and the salary at the grade level. You can add multiple fields in rows area also. Now drag the department field into the rows area. Now the salaries and count of resources are displayed at department level for each grade. Now select any cell into the first column of the pivot table. Right click, go to the expand or collapse option and select collapse entire field. Now the values are at grade level. For each grade level, you can expand and can view the resource count or salary at department level. To change the design of the pivot table, click anywhere in the pivot table, go to the design tab and select any styles available. To change the layout of the pivot table, again select any cell in the pivot table and in the design tab, go to the reports layout and select show in tabular form. Now in this way, you can change the design and style of the pivot tables. So in this video, you have learned how we can create pivot table and quickly arrange and summarize the complex data to get the required information. If you like the content, press thumbs up and share with your friends and colleagues. Subscribe the channel and press bell icon to get notification for the new videos. Share your feedback, suggestions and queries in comment section. Thanks for watching.